and welcome back to How Music is Made, the show where, well, I explain to you how music is made one step at a time, using language that everybody can understand, allegedly. And tonight we're coming back to the mix we started off several weeks ago now. This one that is kind of inspired by this weird mix between Steely Dan meets Pink Floyd and a little bit of the Eagles. Is it kind of that soft rock AOR style of music from the late 70s, early 80s, which I happen to like quite a lot. And well, today I think I'm going to be doing something very funky with it. So with that being said, let's get into it. Welcome back to Luna, which is the software we are going to be using for this mix. Luna is a DAW, for those of you who are not aware of this terminology or this kind of style things. And it's the kind of software we use in the music world to mess around with audio, okay? I'm gonna press play, and we're gonna be listening to the track from start to finish, so we can have an idea of at what stage the mix is, okay? Here we go. All right, so what do I think of the mix at this stage? I think that it's starting to sound like music. It kind of has this proper order. The positioning of the instrumentation is correct. I mean, the volume of each of the different elements of the mix. I don't like, necessarily speaking, the sound of the kick drum that much. It's a little bit too boomy. There is a little bit of extra low end that I don't like. But since we're mixing, we can actually address it. I also like the sound of the bass for the vast majority of time. The thing is that there are moments in which, probably it's because of the sound of the kick, the bass feels a little bit like honky. Get me? So we're going to be addressing that. And also, I like quite a lot the sound of the guitars. We kind of got it to a certain point in which it kind of sounds nice and clean and defined. So let's begin. I'm going to be hitting or going straight to the sound of the kick drum. So I'm going to bring back the mixer area. And one thing, if you are not familiar with this is the audio we are going to be working on, okay? These are known as regions, and they represent the sound contained in each of those rectangles, okay? And you can even see the waveform over there, okay? Now, a color code, for those of you who haven't been following this before, everything that is yellow or dark yellow is part of my drums. Orange, bass, guitars, green, lead guitar, red, that's it. Because this track is very much minimalistic in its approach when it comes to its orchestration. Okay, so, mess around. First thing, I'm gonna bring up the equalizer. We got right now the controls here that are affecting the sound of the kick drum. And if you can see, it's very much reminiscent to what I got in front of me here, over here on the top of the screen. This is a controller. This is what will allow me to actually control the software through the use of hardware. It's not necessarily exclusive for mixing. Oh, it's not something that you truly need to get if you are getting into mixing or music production. For that matter, I happen to be a huge fan of these particular devices, so I use them. So First thing I'm gonna do, and you can already see my hand reaching over this section. This is the filter, the low cut. It's gonna cut the lows, as you can imagine. And I'm gonna use it to remove a little bit of the sound of the kick, the boominess, because I feel that it has plenty of it. So let's do it. But first, let's make sure that we're gonna get to a point in which we got a good chunk of the track playing, which is this region, okay, this section. I turn on the cycle, so it's gonna be coming back and forth. Here we go. How was that? Look, this is what happened. When working with this thing, the equalizer, what I did, and you can see also a reflection of what I did of my moves here with the lights by the side of the pots. What I did was first I went for the super low end, okay, which is controlled by this knob, which is the low cut. That thing is actually telling the equalizer that from this frequency backwards, everything behind this point, it's gonna be removed, okay? It's not gonna be, necessarily speaking, audio. It is, but it's not all of the frequencies, okay? Hashtag not all. Then, over here, the red section of the equalizer, well, and not that one, in this case, this guy is the high band. I'm using it to add a little bit of the click, the tech, the tuk of the sound, out of the sound of the kick. Then I went for these guys here, which are controlling the mids. These guys, particularly this one, is the one that I think removed a good chunk of the problematic areas of the kick drum, but still we got some of that honkiness. So I had to use this guy, the green, which is actually attacking, and let me show you over here on the screen. We're actually working 1,000.85, which will be, that's going to be the frequency we're hitting, 1.85 kilohertz if I use the proper terminology. And I just cut it, remove it, basically 2 dBs, which is the measurement, is the actual measurement system we use in audio, decibels. Okay, it feels a little bit less honky. I like it, but now we gotta, after we did this, now I feel that I gotta do something with the sound of the bass. So let's go for the bass. Let me find it here. Got it. And I'm gonna show you as well the controls for the bass. We're rocking a very complex signal pad over here because we are actually hearing the bass coming out of 2 different sources. If you go back in time and you watch the production cycle for this particular song, I actually recorded this track using an amplifier, a bass amplifier, and a DI track, which is the bass going into the recording setup using something. And probably a pedal or something. It's not the amplifier being recorded, okay? So we're summing both of them together and creating one track, which is the one we're listening to. And in previous sessions, we already worked with it extensively. We can see that we applied compression to it, a bit of equalization to it, and then we added even more compression. Why? Because that's the kind of people I am. And we got a very nice, punchy, clicky bass. The thing is that now with this move on the kick, I don't think it's gonna fit correctly. So let's see. I'm gonna press play and let's listen first to the sound of the amplifier by its own. Yeah, there is a little bit of honkiness coming out of this guy. So I'm gonna find it first. I'm gonna bring up the controls, the equalizer for it, the channel strip, And let's play around. And I can see that I have done anything to it. That explains many things. So let's see. I'm going to solo it just for us to get familiar with the sound and what kind of effect the equalizer is going to have on our signal. That guy is ugly as all balls. So I'm going to save it here. Then let's see on the top. This is nice. This is actually very good. So let's see. Now that we kind of have an idea of what kind of effect our EQ has on our bass, I'm going to be applying the bass to taste while the track is playing. Why? When mixing, even the word itself explains exactly what's the fuss about mixing. You're meant to be merging sounds together. The idea for a mix, or what you're meant to be doing while mixing, is finding the proper distribution, sonically speaking, of all of the different elements that are part of a song in a way that makes sense from an aesthetic perspective and an emotional perspective as well. Look at that. So after my Aristotelian rambling, let's play some music. Here we go. So good. Love it. Now I can feel that the mix, the punchiness is now coming through. The kick is much more energetic. The mix itself is starting to feel a bit more put together. It sounds like orderly, if that makes sense to you. And also kind of tighter sounding. It has a little bit more of that, I want to put it, glue element. I don't know. If you have better wording, let me know, because it's difficult to describe music through words. Okay, coming back to the whole shebang. I like what I got going now. Now I feel confident that I can work a little bit more on the other guitars. So far, and if I use the naming conventions over here, because I use this particular section of the software to remind myself what the hell happened last week, we worked on the bass controlling the drums and the guitar on the left. And by just looking at it, yes, I can see that we only worked on the guitar on the left. So let's see. This is what we got on the left. So far, on the right, the other guitar. Let me explain. The guitars were recorded using a very common technique, which involves having two passes, or let me explain in a different way. Music in general, what we get out of a record, it's usually mixed to a stereo. Why? Because it creates a much more wider sounding image, and also it's a little bit closer to what we actually would be hearing if we were watching the band perform live. The thing is this, since this is an approximation, it's not exactly the same when it comes to recording to what the experience is that is being in front of the band performing. We gotta come up with different ways for the music coming out of your speakers to kind of give you this a very similar impression from an emotional standpoint. So one of the ways to do it, in the case of guitars, it's recording it more than once and moving it across the stereo field, okay? In this case, for this mix, we're actually rocking two different takes. We're rocking the one on the left and the one on the right, obviously. The left side sounds like this. Okay, the right side sounds like this. Together, both of them. See how everything feels kind of wide, okay? Look, now that I listen to the sound of the guitar on the right, I like it as it is, or at least for now, because it has plenty of nice characteristics. It's super bright sounding, beautiful sounding. I can hear the each note played on that chord. The tone is very nice, and also the effects are quite clear and audible, so I like that. So I'm gonna keep it as it is. But I feel that we can make it sound a little more substantial, okay? So let's try a few tricks. First trick, let's add a little bit of reverb, which is adding ambience to the sound of the guitars. Right now, we are doing this, and it's once again one of my tricks. And it's not exclusively a trick of mine, okay? It's actually a very common technique. We are actually using something that is known as a bus, okay? A bus is basically speaking another track, like the ones here or the ones on the screen, but instead of being feeding the guitars straight into the output, which is what we're hearing together, I feed the guitars first into that bus, and that bus is the one that goes into the output of the system, okay? Why am I doing that? Because it allows me to control many things with one fader. For example, all of the guitars are going through the same fader. Let me show you. The guitar's fader is this guy, is the bus. Okay, so it's not only for me to mute or solo the guitars. What I'm going to do with this, I'm going to be affecting all of the guitars together at the same time without any form of hassle. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to be playing something known as reverb. Reverb is one of the things that I always mention in the music analysis that happens every Saturday in this channel. And it's something very important in music because it's what gives the sense or the impression of space and distance, okay? And in this case, the guitars have plenty of reverb, but I used that reverb not in a way to make them feel like they were part of a recording inside of a room. That reverb is there for artistic pursuits. Listen to it. Check this out. That release tail, that's actually the effect. And you can see that it's creating this kind of dreamlike thing that is very beautiful and nice sounding. Musical speaking is very nice sounding. The thing is that it feels that they are kind of, the guitar is not necessarily, it doesn't give the impression of it being with the guitar, with the drummer in the same room, if that makes sense to you. So we're going to be using reverb to create that illusion. Here we go. Right now, I'm going to be using this sense, which is basically we're going to be sending a copy of all of the stuff contained in this channel, this bus. I'm going to be feeding another bus over here, another bus, which has this effect, the stereo room effect coming from the SP2016 reverb by Eventide. Great reverb. I use it on every mix I work on. So let's see. First and foremost, let me check if I am not using it already, because I think I am not. I am. So I'm not going to be able to change stuff around. No worries. That's actually the point, because now that I know that it's been used already on the drums, I will use it to taste, and it will start to kind of glue together the drums and the guitars. You'll see. Here we go. I'm going to be selecting this guy, and now is this guy. Sorry. You can see that I'm controlling now the knob, which is controlling the amount of guitars going into the sound of the reverb. Here we go. Ah, could you hear that? The release tail. So good. It wasn't there before. Now I want you to pay attention to how the drums and the entirety of the mix starts to kind of merge into one thing, into music. I'm going to take it down, all the way down. I'm going to be feeding it once again, little by little, because we got to find the sweet spot. Whenever I'm doing this kind of thing, I go bananas just to see how far can I go before I ruin it, and then I back it off little by little. So now I know that somewhere around this area is where the money is going to be found. Here we go. So good, right? And look, you even saw me pushing the guitar faders even more, making them louder. Why? Because now that I was vibing to the music in this different way, I started to feel that maybe I can push the guitar a little bit louder. I didn't go bananas when it comes to the loudness, of course, but it feels a little bit more meatier sounding, right? There is more content, or yeah, content is not the word I should be using. It has more going for it, if that makes more sense. The song is starting to sound much more musical. The reverb is adding this sense of space, and I like it. Now, since we're playing around with this kind of stuff, let's add a little bit more reverb. This time around, I think I'm gonna go for on the lead guitar, the one playing the solo, I'm gonna add even more reverb to it, but I'm gonna do it in an independent fashion. So I'm gonna select this guy, which is gonna be another synth, but this is gonna be the one that is controlling exclusively, or is being sending exclusively the sound of my lead tone. And I'm gonna go for whole. Here we go. This guy, okay? And over there, I can tell that we haven't done anything with it, so it's free range. Excellent. Whole reverb, it's a completely different flavor, because so far we used a room sound, which is, as the name implies, trying to recreate the sound of a room, of a smaller space. And in contrast, a whole sound is a much more larger. It gives the impression of it being in a much more larger space, and thus increases the feeling of distance, and it's a little bit more melancholic, or at least that's how I interpret it, and much more ambiency-like. So it's perfect for guitar solo. So I'm gonna be using that guy, which is not this guy, is this guy. And I know, looks terrible. Complex as all balls, but let's try something a bit less complex, because I think I'm gonna go for something a bit more magical sounding. That's great, by the way, and it's there for a reason. I usually use that guy, at least as a starting point. But now that I know that I'm not gonna be using this guy for something other, I'm gonna use it for much more of a special effect. I'm gonna go for a much more complex reverb. No, more complex, more audacious reverb. So let's see. I'm gonna go for reverb. We're here on my selection. This sucks. Okay, let's go for it. I think I'm gonna use something a little bit more, as I said, more avant-garde, a little bit more out there. So let's try. I can go for Black Hole, which is a great one, but reverb is always an issue. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go for Black Hole. You'll see. This is a huge, insane, ridiculous reverb, which I love, but the sound is, as the name implies, like a black hole. It's huge. Let's solo the guitar for now so we can see exactly what kind of effect this guy is gonna have. I told you, this thing is magical sounding. It sounds awesome. The thing is that it could be too much, but I kind of like what it's doing right now. I'm gonna press play once again, and let me explain a little bit of what's going on, because even though it looks less complex than the other one, what it does is insane. Gravity. This is gonna control how long it's gonna take for this guy to be gone, okay? Size, or sorry, the other way around, because this guy controls a little bit of a detuning effect that it got when I push it, and if I go backwards, see what happens. It goes in reverse. So it's very weird, but it's awesome. I think I'm gonna use it like this, maybe somewhere here, and size is gonna give us this huge, or a little bit less huge, because this guy doesn't go tiny. And let's keep it there. Pre-delay, important. It's gonna wait a few milliseconds before the effect starts to kick in. It's very important because if we use it like no milliseconds whatsoever, no pre-delay, the effect is gonna come in immediately, and it's great for special effects. But since I'm trying to keep this kind of sense of logging and kind of melancholic vibe, because the guitar solo is kind of cozy, but it's like, yeah, like remembering something, right? And this is the artistic part of mixing. I am thinking of what kind of tale would be involved with a song like this one. And I mean, this is like remembering like an old memory. It doesn't have to be romantic because it doesn't have that sexy romantic vibe. It's sexy, but it's not romantic, if that makes sense. So I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole of going a little bit more like heartfelt. I want something distant, okay, like a long distance memory, if that makes very sense. So I'm gonna use this reverb for that very reason. So if I have it set to no pre-delay, the effect is gonna kick in immediately, and it's not gonna give us this sense of space, because it's gonna happen immediately. And whenever you hear this effect in the real world, it's usually the reflections coming back to you of any sound inside of a very reflective area. For example, your bedroom. Okay. So here we go. Let's see how it fares in the mix. Backing it off all the way down, and let's see. Here we go. Okay, I like it as it is, but I also like it a lot when it did the with a lot of this effect. Let's do this. I'm gonna go a little bit more big boy on you, because we're gonna be introducing a very esoteric concept which is known as automation. And automation means this. I'm gonna press play and I'm gonna be recording the moves I do here. Everything. It could be the positioning of this fader. It could be any move over here on the other side of the board. It could even record any form of movement over my mouse, okay, or through my mouse. And every time I press play, it's gonna replicate that motion. Okay, I hope it made sense. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna be selecting the track. We're gonna be rocking the lead tone, or the lead sound. This one, pinkish one. And I'm gonna turn the read mode on this guy to be touch. More on that later. But in simple terms, it's gonna allow me to push this guy forward to a certain level. And as soon as I release it, it's gonna go back to the starting point. And I'm gonna be using the fader rather than the knob, because it's gonna be more musical. So if everything goes according to the plan, I'm gonna give myself a few bars before I begin doing something very stupid. Here we go. Okay, I like the second one. The first one was a little bit not good because I think I overdid it. So let's see. Here we go. We got here. Let me zoom in so we can see together. Let me make it even bigger. You can see this dotted line, and let me increase the size of this things. This things it's gonna be large. There it is. Okay. You can see this dotted line, right? This represents the moves that I did on my console, right? This is the one that I held for way too long, the effect, and you could hear how mushy the whole effect becomes. Let me show it to you. Big difference, right? So I'm gonna redo it. Here we go. My mistake. Let's do it again. Smooth, right? Oh, and look, that's what I wanted. Just to create this moment of bigness. I know that sounds horrible, but it worked. It's starting to give you vibes, right? Now I got this idea. If we take a look at these other sounds, the guitars, we got one that plays this beautiful chord. I think it's this guy, and it's this guitar. Sounds very good, right? The thing is that, how about if we create like brang, 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 like a repetition? We're gonna be using another effect. This is known as delay. The thing is that I want that repetition, and this is gonna be interesting and funky. Right now, that guitar is coming from the right? How about if we get the repetitions coming from the left? Like creating this quasi ping pong effect that will maybe give us this sense of dimension, making it a little bit bigger. Let's try it. So, coming back to the whole mixing game and thing, I'm gonna now go for my area where I have my repetition, my delays. In this case, I got several delays at my disposal, always on my template, which is what you have here in front of you. And I got this one. We can go for the 3000 or this guy over here, which is a very funky sounding reverb. The thing is this. I think I'm gonna go for the 3000 because it has a little bit of more texture. Yeah, that's exactly the reason. So first, I'm gonna create the copy from the guitar. We're rocking the guitar on the right, and thank you for your likes, by the way. I'm gonna select this guy over here, and now we're gonna go for 1/4 H3000, which is the one that we got there. And now, just for the lulz, let's see what kind of sounds we get out of it. Okay, I'm gonna solo the guitar because I got no idea what kind of effect we're gonna have or what kind of reaction we're gonna get out of the guitar. So let's hope for the best. Hey Victor, how is it going? Good to have you here again. Victor was watching yesterday's live stream on my other channel, the one that is way more technical. So it's great to have you here as well. Thank you for spending time with me. Now let's see what the hell is going to happen here. I think it might work. Let's press play once again. It's doing it, but it's not loud enough. It's because I'm not sending that much. I'm gonna get a little bit more aggressive. Nice, but not necessarily doing what I want because the effect, the repetitions are taking place in the center, all right? And I don't want it. So I will get to this section here. Let me make sure that it's visible to you. The 3000 thing, and we're gonna be sending or moving the panning path to the right. Now let's see. Sounds cool. But I think I need a little bit more modulation. So let's see. We're gonna go funky, okay? Don't get scared. Jesus Christ. Okay. Damn. Okay, let's see. This is a monster of an effect, but it's awesome. Let me just do something not that stupid. Yeah, we're gonna go for the pitch. And I'm gonna send this guy here. So let's see now what we get. That sounds great. Sorry for going full on nerd mode on you, but let me explain. This thing is huge. Okay, this plugin, it's a replica of a beautiful machine from the 80s known as the H3000 by Eventide. And I love these things. I haven't owned one myself, but I have my eyes on the newer version, which is H9000. But regardless, I like this sound so much because it makes me think of some of my favorite guitar players. The first one that comes to mind is, of course, Steve Vai. But what I did, I added a little bit of modulation, which is that detuning thing that I applied to the repetitions happening exclusively on the left, which is where we're actually getting most of the repetitions out, right? Now that I did that, I think it's gonna be a good idea for me to go full on, see the mix itself, and now try to position this crazy effect to taste. I'm gonna take it all the way down, the fader, the one that controls the output of this guy, and we're gonna be blending it into the track. Here we go. It sounds amazing, dude. It's adding more texture, it's adding more color to the mix, and also, wow, it's adding this dreamlike thing, don't you think? And that's the whole thing. When mixing, it's very important for any single one of us who does this, is to understand that our role is to truly do this larger than life thing to our mix. In order to make sure that the intent of the artist is projected correctly. Since I am the one who produced and recorded and performed for the track that we're using for this exercise, since I don't use any of my clients' stuff because I don't have the rights to use it online, obviously, I am gonna be wearing all of the hats involved in this, but I think it makes sense because it's easier for me to explain those things to all of you. Look. When you are mixing, you usually are in contact or in touch with the producer of the record, and also I like to always try to have some form of communication as well with the musicians, okay? Because I like to understand what's going on, and I like to understand what's the objective, right? When I am the producer, I always happen to be always in touch with the musicians, of course, because I'm producing the record, right? But when I am the producer, I always like to make sure that I understand the idiosyncrasies of the song I'm going to be working on, regardless of the genre, okay? Because the idea is, as a producer, is to make sure that the song, the recording, not the song, the recording manages to represent and express the intent and the ideas that the song itself is capable to do when performed live. All right? And let's say, since I know, Victor, you're a DJ, what happens if you're dealing with an electronic proposition? Let's say you're working with not electronic instruments, such as synthesizers and group boxes and stuff. There is still plenty of musicality in those devices. because the performance is what matters. It's mostly the performance rather than the programming of the sounds. And even the programming of those sounds, let's say you're rocking, I don't know, I always show you this because it's the one that is always close to me. Let's say you're rocking something like this, right? An analog synthesizer. These things are imperfect in the sense of them not being able to sound the same way twice ever again. They are always very close, and from a metaphysical perspective, that alone is very interesting because it's always a gamble, right? Sonically speaking, even though you manage to recall the sounds, it's never 100% the same what it was yesterday because they are prone to be affected by many things. The voltage, for example, how steady it is. The same happens with the equipment that I got here in the studio and blah blah blah. Okay, so the beauty of this is that as a producer, you have to first understand the concept behind the song, and you have to make sure that whatever you do while recording, because your role as a producer of a record while the recording takes place, is just to make sure that there is a translation that makes sense, or let me rephrase it. Your role is to make sure that the intent and the objective of the song, the core message, translates correctly from the live performance into the recorded medium. Okay? Because once again, even if we're dealing with a band such as Kraftwerk, for example, full-on electronic music, those guys perform their tracks live using synthesizers, and they are renowned for never playing the same thing twice because it's part of the charm, man. Get me? So I hope that made sense. I don't want to spend that much time going into the rabbit hole of this because it's a mixing session, not necessarily a production session, but you get me. So as a mixing engineer, since I understand what the vibe should be, which is a little bit more in the sense of expansiveness, remembering something, and this kind of emotion, as Victor is saying, we gotta find ways to make it larger than life, and the effect did it. Nice. Now, I'm gonna get rid of this because it usually hurts my eyes. Now we got this going. Now let's see what we can do to the guitar. Because this guitar, the one on the the left, it's playing a little bit more of a much more complex pattern. It's nice sounding, right? The issue is this. If I add the whole thing with the repetition that I did on the other guitar, since there are much more notes involved in this one, we're going to start to get a build-up of energy. I don't like that because it's going to occupy more space than it should. But I feel that we can go for adding another reverb to it to make it even larger and using a different one. So in this case, I'm going to go for, let's see, we haven't used the chamber, which makes me feel ashamed of myself. No, you know what? I'm going to save the chamber for the drums. Should I? We can use it for everything. Okay, yeah, we're going to stick to the chamber, but I'm going to put it here. Okay? So, chamber reverb. What is it? It's this guy. I usually have this one as a starting point because it sounds amazing. This is a chamber reverb, first and foremost, as the name implies, it's replicating the sound of the reflections inside of a chamber. What on earth is a chamber? It's not one that you will send people to take a bath, if you know what I mean. No, this is actually a space inside of a building that is covered with highly reflective material, known as garages, parking lots, warehouses, you name it. And what you do, as you might be able to see in the tiny skeuomorphism here, what you do is actually you put inside of that highly reflecting room a bunch of speakers and then a bunch of microphones, and you record the reflections happening inside of that room. Got it? So, as you can see here, we got a few microphones already there, and this particular set of speakers. If I click here, we're going to switch to different rooms. And those are not random rooms. These are actually rooms that are inside of Capitol Records in Los Angeles, and the coveted, super respected recording studio from Frank Sinatra fame. Okay, so let's try around. I'm gonna get, don't know, maybe that one. And since we're rocking the synth, I'm gonna send a good chunk of the guitar Let's see what this thing's doing as it is. Isn't that beautiful? I didn't do anything to it, but it's already doing something nice. Let's listen to it once again. It's so how magical sounding. It's like yeah, it's once again giving us this oniric vibe, or yeah, it has an emotion. Jesus Christ, I don't want to mess around with it because I like it. I like what I'm getting out of this right now. The problem is that we are listening to it in solo, and you don't mix music in solo. We gotta know what's gonna happen when the rest of the band joins in. And chances are, since this thing is huge, it will occupy so much space that it's gonna make everything sound bad. So with all the pain in my heart, we're gonna have to back it off, but let's find a sweet spot for it in context, okay? Here we go. Love it! Sorry for shouting, but damn it, I love it. Just one thing. I don't know about you, but I could hear a little bit of honkiness coming out of the reverb. But that's easy to be fixed. We're gonna use the built-in EQ over here, equalizer. First, let's do a little bit of the traditional low cut, just to make sure that we don't get rumbleness, which is the super low energy, low end energy. And now I think, I will maybe hit both of them. First the mids, just to remove a little bit of the honkiness. Here we go. And here Victor's saying I would push that other guitar a bit more to the more right. Yes, maybe you're right, because a little bit is not necessarily full on to the side. And now we're getting this huge stereo field thanks to the effects. Makes total sense. First, let's try to remove the honkiness. Here we go. So good, right? We're starting to get a much more vibey sounding track than we did before. And this is because we're going a little bit berserk with the effects. But that's the beauty, because this kind of music, even though we're not dealing with that many instruments, since this style allows for, how can I put it? Has many spaces in between notes, because everything is very spaced out. It gives us the chance to go a little bit more esoteric, or a little bit more metrosexual with the use of effects. No, metrosexual is not the word thing. Liberal on the use of effects. And it's giving us this particular, the chance to go a little bit more bonkers, because it's a little bit psychedelic as well. And as Victor suggested, and it was a good recommendation, I pushed the guitar a little bit closer to the right side, opening up a little bit more of the center for mix, giving us a much more wider sense of space and dynamics. Or not dynamics, width. The song's starting to feel a little bit more hi-fi, I don't know. You get me. Nice. Now, at this stage, let me check the clock. We still have a few more moves possible for me to make. So let's see. Like it where it stands right now, I think we are getting a very vibey sounding track. And also I love what happened to the kick and the bass at the beginning. But now that we worked so much on the guitars playing the rhythm, I feel that the guitar playing the lead could benefit from getting a bit of that particular chamber reverb. But first, I'm gonna do a very cool effect or very cool trick that you can see that I have here already. It's called the rear bass. And what does that do? It makes everything sound better. As simple as that. Now look, it's basically a compressor that I have on the side, and it's set to stun, allegedly. And what I'm gonna do with it, it's gonna be blend or send a bit of a few or some of the guitar, the one playing the lead tone, to it, so we can get a little bit more consistency on the tone and the sound. So I'm gonna begin doing that. I'm gonna select the lead tone here, send, and let me make sure that we're. No, this is not my parameter. Let me fast attack, slow release. Yes. Yeah, let's see. It might work. Let's see. Here we go. No, it's incorrect because you could even hear some form of problems with latency. Not latency. What's the name of that? You know the thing. Now with freaking phase coherency. So I'm gonna increase the input, and also I'm gonna set it to a much more aggressive compression. So we're gonna be squashing much more, and then I'm gonna be blending the sound into the mix. Just a little bit, just for us to make sure that we're getting a little bit of that effect. The thing is that I'm not convinced, being very frank, it's not getting the job done. So I'm gonna scrap this idea. Good attempt anyway. But here, Victor is saying, since it's such an important guitar melody, maybe it should be centered, and the one on the left should be background guitar spread out. No, that's correct. You're thinking in as a proper arranger, Victor, because that's the point. The idea, and this is actually a good segue. When you are not even mixing, okay, this is taking us several steps back, because now we're gonna be thinking in terms of composition, okay, and orchestration. I know big words, but it makes sense. You'll see. Orchestration, in very simplistic terms, orchestration stands for how can I put it? The proper correlation between the instruments, the selection of instruments, and the notes played by those instruments are in a given composition. If you go, for example, if you play something that has plenty of cymbals, and then you add more tambourine, for example, on top of it, there is a potential for a clash between both of those sounds, because they are very similar in texture, in timbre, and in overall usage inside of a song, okay? So as a composer, you gotta be careful on not create overlapping spots. Secondly, you gotta think in terms of texture, but on what do they mean at an emotional level, okay? And now, since we're dealing now with mixing and recording in recorded music, and that even applies to orchestras, by the way, the positioning and distribution across the stereo field. The reason why you have on an orchestra the violin is somewhere here, the cello's on the back, blah blah blah, the choir all the way to the back, stuff like that. It's because based on that position on the stage, the distribution of the harmony coming out of the instrumentation merges together into one mass that is called music, not just instruments playing together. So here what Victor is suggesting, and he's correct, the melody, which is the lead voice or the center of attention for this particular track, is the guitar playing, the distorted guitar track, the one with the solo. It's the one that is in the center, okay? Because the center is usually where most of our attention is usually done. The sides are there for ambience and special effects and stuff like that, right? Then, if we don't leave enough space for the guitar in the center to be the center, take the center stage, this mix could sound correct from a technical standpoint, but from an aesthetic perspective, it's not correct if the guitar, which is clearly leading the way, is not being perceived as being in the position of the leader of the song. Okay, makes sense. And here, Victor is saying, melody guitar, center, strong guitars on the background, spread out. It's exactly the objective. You're totally correct. Right now, it might be that the lead guitar is a little bit not as loud because we're still in the mixing stage. So let's listen to it again, but I'm gonna go back to the beginning, so we can vibe, okay, with the track. I know those words are kind of Summer-like and whatever, but it makes sense. So let's see. Sumer coded, that's even the language they are using. Okay, from the top, I want you to be very much attentive to the sound of the guitar, the lead guitar, okay, the one that is playing the solo. Here we go, from the top. Okay, here's the deal. First thing, the fantastic reverb that I was losing my shirt for a few minutes ago sounds terrible at the beginning. This one, look. It's too much. It's way too much. It's even making the sound of the percussion feel totally out of place, okay? But we're gonna be addressing that later because I have plans for that particular part of the song that will be very good, but more about that maybe next week because it's gonna be basically most of the session is gonna be spent doing that particular trick. Now, I can see why Victor is thinking about pushing the guitar a bit louder. There are sections in which, for the vast majority of the track, the guitar is sitting correctly, okay? It's like in the sweet spot, loudness-wise. But there are moments, especially moments in which the guitar goes a little bit more athletic, in which the guitar is not as loud as it should, and it kind of loses the lead position. That's very common. That's very normal because look, that usually happens with singers. Because as a singer myself, I can tell you that there are certain registers that it's impossible for a human being to sing at full force. And the same applies to certain registers that it's impossible for you to sing them at a lower force, at a lower intensity level, okay, loudness. And that's dynamic range. And that applies to, that's why we use compressors and stuff. The problem is this. If I use squishing devices such as a compressor, which will kind of get rid of that difference between the highest pointing volume with the lowest pointing volume, we're gonna end up, we run the risk of making the compressor audible, way too present in the mix. And that could feel weird, okay? The natural way to do it is by, once again, bringing back the automation, which is me riding the fader as the track plays and pushing, physically speaking, the fader, making it louder in the points in which it has to be louder, and then bringing it back to the right position as the time progresses. So I'm gonna do that because it's clearly a problem, particularly at the end, but I'm not gonna do that today because I usually like to do that once I feel that the mix is musical, okay? So here Victor is saying, the vibe is great. For me, that guitar at the start and beginning, that span to the left takes away from the main guitar when it comes in. Look, we're kind of, it's basically related to this. The approach is different, but the problem is detected. And this is actually one of the reasons why mixing music, or why we got so many great mixers in this business. It's because each of us, as I was mentioning in live streams, in yesterday's live stream, that each of us can see the same problem, but our solution to the problem varies differently and dramatically. And sometimes, it gives you a vibe, the solution, because for as long as it gets the job done, doesn't matter what you did. What matters is, does it sound good or does it sound like shit? And since we don't like shit, we are always striving for good. We're gonna go for the good one. Okay, but yes. Now, he added an extra comment here. I guess to keep the guitar left, the left guitar, to work the main guitar might need to go right or more balanced sound. Yeah, that's the thing. Each move you do when mixing will be, there is always a ripple effect. Something else will have to be addressed as well as a result of the previous move. So, as of now, I am not gonna work on the lead guitar for now because, as I said before, I already had plans for that. But now that Victor mentioned it, I'm just explaining it. Okay. So, since the plan for today is mostly working on the vibe and the style of the track, let's add something else, because I think I can do something very cool at the end of this guitar track, using the synths, using the funky reverb we used before, and using the automation thing. So I'm gonna be creating once again a huge throw, which is gonna be like going berserk on the reverb effect we used on the guitar. The one I automated several minutes ago now, just to create this huge release tail. Okay, so setting it back to touch, and for the Emperor. Okay, that was nice. That was totally an accident, but I think it worked. Let's see. Let me remove the synth, the automation, because I'm gonna work a little bit on the sound itself, because it's a little bit abrupt, the ending. So I'm gonna create a slight fade, which is just gonna dog down the output a little bit, following that. I'm on top of it, following that particular shape. Okay, let's see. so good. The thing is that I think you're thinking the same as I do. There is a little bit of noise coming out of the recording process, which is totally normal. Amplifiers are meant to be noisy. So there, it's coming from the guitars on the sides. So I'm going to do the same. Those fade outs and clean them up just to be sure that we get this in order. So let's see. Here we go. Okay, it's working. I'm gonna do the same over here on the bass because the note is correct. The thing is that we don't need that such a long release tail, the bass, so I'm gonna go here. Why I'm leaving it there or starting from there? Because that's the final moment in which that note is played, the last one. Musically speaking, it makes sense. Let's see once again. That's good. That's good. Damn it. I'm happy with the result. But look, coming back to the whole discussion we had a few minutes ago regarding the guitars and shit. Now I get it. I think the guitars is not the lead guitar, the one that is not loud enough. It's the guitars on the sides. That particular final section, those guitars feels a little bit too loud. So what I can do is do a quick automation on those guitars, just taking them down right at the moment in which that section happens. Here we go, for the Emperor. C'est magnifique, that's good. That's super good. Okay. Yeah, the automation worked, but I even think that maybe the green guitars were way too loud since the beginning. So we reached this moment in which I think it's time for us to compare the starting point of the mix and compare it to what we got today. And the difference is gonna be night and day, light and darkness. So don't cringe, okay? Because we did many monumental things tonight. Let me bring the reference plugin, which is our trusty adapter Metric AV. And remember, when it's blue, it's a mix. When it's orange, is the previous version. Here we go. From the top. The intro, I don't like it, but I'm gonna work on it next week. Here we go. Okay, yeah, the difference is staggering. It's huge, obviously, because even though we worked most of our time, well, we did a little bit of surgical moves in the way of the equalizer, working on the sound of the bass and the kick at the beginning of the session. The biggest change came out of the use of the space effects, the reverbs in general, and the delays as well. Because now this new version of the track there is a feeling, evoke. It's not just a collection of starting to sound correctly arranged instruments. In this case, we're starting to even, while the track was playing, I was even thinking of stuff, like remembering things. Because the song kind of has this, as I said before, this kind of nostalgic subtext that is starting to become palpable. And it's very important as a composer to be able to express that idea through the use of the tools that musical instruments are. Here, Victor is saying, the funny thing is that when people see the name DJ, lots of people assume you just know four on the floor music. No, I get you, man. I know. That's totally incorrect. The thing is that, I'm going to elaborate a bit more on that. Electronic music tends to be usually shoehorned into that particular EDM style, which is not necessarily, EDM is not even a style. It's what people refer to is actually big room, which is the sound of those super commercial records. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And 424 is the poop, 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 poop kick thing, which is very much a staple for those particular records, right? But electronic music is best, man. It's best. It's best. And it has plenty of great stuff to offer. It's not necessarily something that is exclusive to one particular thing. And I think it's very incorrect for people to assume that just because you might be into one particular style of legit music, because don't think that all music is made equal. No, of course not. There's music that really sucks. But, and that applies to every genre. There are plenty of rock bands that suck ass. And sorry for the language, but we gotta call a spade, right? So it's important, okay? So you don't have to be music can be found, for as long as it's good, it's going to be good music. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm starting to go around circles. Here, Victor is adding more. The section makes sense because the guitars on both sides plus the center. It's just the start that throws off a bit. Not truly, man. But I have plans for the start. You'll see what I'm going to do with it. But I'm going to do it because it's going to be extremely elaborate. I had this in my head since the first session of this particular process. But since I know that it's going to take a while, it's very busy, it's something that will require plenty of moves, I want to make sure that first I got a good foundation before I began going cute. And yes, and also you're right, it's because it starts from the left. The guitar at the very beginning is very much on the left, and it creates this unbalanced thing at the beginning. So, there you got it. Today was a very good push forward. I know that I usually say this at the end of these live streams, but don't get me wrong. The thing is that there are moments in which the advancement or the increment in quality is more palpable than others. Since we did so many things, not surgical or technical, but more on the vibe thing, worked a lot on the sense of space, dramatism, with a little bit of the automation that I did. We are starting to evoke emotion. And that's the thing that I always try to point out when I am doing the music reviews on the channel. Regardless of what we might be analyzing, I don't know, Kino or Iron Maiden, my point is always to draw you to those very details. The use of the tools to create an emotion on you while listening to the track. And today, I think we truly focused all of our efforts on that. So if you got any question, if you got any more suggestions or anything regarding music production in general, well, just leave a like, please do. I'm grateful for those of you who did. And also, don't be shy. Ask as much as you can. Look, Victor is not shy. You should be like Victor, be more like Victor. So, thank you for joining, thank you for watching, and as usual, the only thing left to remind it is that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about, and thank you, Victor. See you around, and I'll see you when I see you guys.